the fire exits are on the left and the toilets are downstairs in the basement, is that correct? I'm going to, I'm here, I'm in Norway, I'm in Hamar. I'm just going to hand you over to the art bank. I can't pronounce the proper, and every time I try and pronounce it, it sounds something else. So I'm just going to say art bank, and I'm just going to pass you over.
Trenger kanskje ikke noe mikrofon. Hører dere meg greit? Ja. Spike McClarty, han en performancekunstner og praksisbasert forsker som utforsker hybriditet, identitet og transformasjon gjennom kostyme, kroppsliggjøring og sanselige erfaringer. Hans langvarige persona Barnes White Rabbit dukker hver måned opp ved daggry ved bredden av Themsen, der han bruker sin tilstedeværelse i et stort kaninkostyme til å forstyrre hverdagsstrukturer, utforske temaer som myter, folketro og nevrodivergent maskering. Spike har en bachelorgrad i kunst fra Kingston University og en mastergrad i Performance and Visual Practice fra Brighton, med utmerkelse. Han fullfører nå sin praksisbaserte doktorgrad med titelen A Hybrid Nation. Kunstbanken, vi som jobber her, vi ble kjent med Spike som en del av kunstnergruppa The Hybrids, som nylig hadde utstilling på galleri EKG, og var en samarbeidspart med oss under Performance-festivalen i oktober. Spike deltok da sammen med elever med flyktningbakgrunn. Vi ser frem til en interessant og lærerik time sammen. Det blir anledning for spørsmål og samtale etter presentasjonen. And with that, I give the floor to Spike. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get this on. This is all very technical stuff. There we go. 1, 2. We're using the microphone. Can you hear me? Good. Brilliant. Through my pocket. I feel like an android. So, right, here we are. Thank you very much for hosting me today. And it's a preparation for my examination, which is next week. So hopefully next time you see me, I will be Dr. Spike. So I imagine there'll be a lot of changes and it won't be over that quickly. The lecture is called A Hybrid Nation, and it's a neurodivergent research and the animal mask in practice. Are you okay there?
Yeah.
Hello, is that too
Was
low?
it a bit loud?
Okay,
Yeah.
right. Can you hear me now? Can you still hear me? Great. A part of it is also for recording as well. So
Okay, sorry.
I apologise. Okay, housework sorted. Up here, you will have seen the website previous, that spikemcclarity.com is the second part of my thesis. So this is my thesis, and the website is the practice aspect of it. So it connects. It's one piece of work. So if you need to later, do go on the website and have a look. Okay. There is some translation which we're going to give out. Just gives you an abbreviation of what the talk is about, and it's all in Norwegian. Okay, this 14th of November 2025, we're in the Art Bank Art Centre in Hamar, Norway. So good morning and thank you for being here. First, I'd like to acknowledge that I've used AI software to assist in structuring this lecture. However, it's not been written for me. It was compiled from 3 years worth of research material. I use Copilot and Grammarly, but they keep arguing with each other and I have no idea who's telling me the right spelling. So when you get into the AI world, especially with some dyslexia, it becomes very complex. If one AI software is saying this is how you spell it, and another one saying no, this is what it is. it sends me down another rabbit hole. And so, as been introduced, I'm Spike McClarity. I'm a research student, and my research project, Hybrid Nation, explores how performing in a reimagined animal costume can open what I call a performative third space. A space where identity can be tested, renegotiated, and reimagined. I completed this project as part of my practice-based PhD at Kingston University. It sits at the intersection of performance, neurodivergent practice, and post-human thought. And however, today I'm not going to retell the whole PhD story. And I have to thank my professor, Sarah Upstone, and my other supervisor, Dr. Hannah Ballou, who have been supporting me over the last 3 years. I want to initiate a conversation about what it means to conduct a research as a neurodivergent artist, and how this approach to working produces knowledge through lived experience and creative making. My argument is this: performing in hybrid animal costumes through a neurodivergent lens is not only art, it is also a way of gaining new understanding about how we live, belong, and connect. I will talk about 3 things: how neurodivergence shapes my way of researching, how hybrid animal costume becomes a tool for discovery, and how the performative third space becomes a place of shared understanding, what I call a way of knowing through embodiment. These are my collaborators. A quick guide. At the beginning in leather is the hybrid cruiser, the Lagomorph. Usagi is another story, but he's the next beginning in this chapter. The wolf is an imposter, but the wolf identifies as a rabbit. And then you've got the alchemist and the hybrid clan. So this gives you an idea. So when I'm talking about the hybrids, this is who I'm talking about. So I think, yes, so there's hybridity as the costumes, and hybridity, which I forgot. Anyway, I'll come back to my line. So finally, I will connect this to older Norwegian traditions of animal masking, illustrating how transformation has long been part of human culture. I've had great fun actually researching some of the Norwegian mythologies. So we're going to look at neurodivergence as a method. My work begins from my lived experience of ADHD and dyslexia. This is not something to overcome, it is the way my mind and body moves through the world. I often work through impulse, association, and sensory connection. Traditional academic structure can feel like a narrow corridor that I keep bouncing off. So I decided not to fight that, but use it. Or when we talk about traditional academic, I'm referencing neurotypical world of thinking. My research became a form of neurodivergent practice. Instead of forcing my way of thinking through straight lines, I use it to explore, to investigate, to wonder, to link things in my own way that might not seem connected at first glance. This is how I process and understand information. It's fragmented. My thesis is written as fragments, vignettes, journal pieces, and live reflections, because this is how my mind naturally organises and makes sense of things. I draw on Robin Nelson's idea of softer methodologies where knowledge is created through doing, reflecting, and sensing, not only through text. This approach also employs an autoethnographic method utilising my own experiences to reflect on broader social and cultural issues. For example, how neurodivergent people are perceived or not perceived, and how our differences become both a strength and a challenge. In trying to describe how my mind moves through ideas, I began using a phrase of my own, neurodrifting, a term I coined in July 2025. I use this word to describe a specific state associated with ADHD, where thought drifts between focus and distraction, following unexpected threads that often lead to creative disorder. It's not the same as daydreaming. It is an active movement between ideas, materials, and sensations. When I'm neurodrifting, I am not lost. I am navigating through association, intuition, and emotion. It is how I research, how I make, and how I connect. For me, neurodrifting is both a way of being and a way of knowing, a method that embraces movement, curiosity, and unpredictability as a source of insight. Through this, I argue that neurodivergent thinking is in itself a research method. It produces what I call liquid knowledge, knowledge that moves through the body, costumes, and emotions. I'm not the only person that refers it to liquid knowledge. Robin Nelson and Marina Abramovich. So it flows, it does not stay fixed. So as you can tell, I tend to go with how this kind of knowledge comes from being inside the experience, not from standing outside and analysing it. So it's looking at the juxtaposition between how the body feels knowledge, how it filters. So when you use a coffee filter and the water kind of passes through it, and you're left with the taste and the experiences that when you drink a cup of coffee. I drink life in the same way. Sometimes I have a good experience, sometimes I don't. So we're going to look at the hybrid costume as a tool for discovery. The animal costume or hybrid form is not a decoration of disguise. It is a living part of the research, a way to ask questions through the body. When I wear it, it alters how I think, how I move, how others perceive me, and how I perceive them. Inside the mask, the sound is muffled, heat builds up, and vision narrows, and I hear my own heartbeat. My breathing becomes a rhythm of the performance. This heightened awareness becomes lived data, speaking about identity and transformation. The mask and costume, from what Maurice Merleau-Ponty called a threshold, where the inner and outer worlds meet. It is both protection and exposure. The costume conceals the human but reveals another kind of presence. Following Jane Bennett's idea of vibrant matter, I view these materials, fur, latex, fabric, as active partners. They shape me as I shape them. Each material carries its own temperature, weight, smell, and memory. They are not props. These guys are my collaborators. Through them, I learn how non-human matter influences the human body and imagination. Thus, the hybrid costume becomes both a symbol and a method. It represents a mixed identity and also embodies it. By working with it, I can study how boundaries blur between the self and other, between the human and animal, and between seeing and being seen. So the performative third space, we're going to use this as an example. This leads to what I call the performative third space. The ideas originate from Homer K. Baba, who described hybridity as a space where cultures meet and new identities emerge. However, before I proceed, let's get some insight into what the first and second space are, or spaces are. The first space is the human body, which is concealed inside the rabbit. The second space is people external to me. And the third is the costume, which is the container that becomes a third space. And as you can see by the picture, so I'm concealed inside the rabbit, and the biker is the external. And the costume is the performative third space, the in-between space between me and the external, the audience. In my work, this third space becomes physical and personal. It becomes physical and personal. It is the moment when I'm neither human nor animal, neither fully myself or fully performer, but something in between. Judith Butler writes about identity being formed through repeated actions. When I wear the mask again and again, each time I become slightly different versions of myself. It's not a role I play, it's a process of becoming. For me, this space also reflects a neurodivergent experience. To live with ADHD or dyslexia often means existing between definitions, not entirely fitting in any category. The costumes become a visual version of the condition, a lived metaphor for the shifting self. The third space is not always a comfortable or safe environment. As Benetta Parry reminds us in her critique of Baba, the space between is full of power and imbalance. I relate to that. For a neurodivergent artist, the public world can also feel like that, demanding, exposed and unequal. Yet it is in this unstable space that new understanding can emerge. The performative third space serves as a model for thinking differently, demonstrating that knowledge can emerge from uncertainty as much as from clarity. It is a quiet resistance to fixed meaning. So we're going to look at context and lineage, animal masking in Norway. So, as I said at the beginning, it's been amazing researching some of the local myths. As we are here in Norway, I aim to connect this research to the older traditions of animal masking and transformations that are part of this region's cultural heritage. This situates my work within a larger narrative of humans becoming animals, offering a way to understand the world. I'm going to try my best. The Julebuk, or Yule goat, is one of the oldest examples that I came across during the midwinter festivals. People dressed in goat masks or skins would sometimes visit houses, singing or offering blessings. Yule goat is both playful and sacred, part human, embodying the spirit of the animal, in this case a goat. This hybrid can be seen wandering from town to town, bringing a somewhat shamanic, shape-shifting presence of otherness. According to my research, the figure has roots in pre-Christian beliefs, where the god Thor's chariot was pulled by goats. Tankristnia and Tankinjosta. The combination of humour, fear and blessings resonates with one of my own hybrids, the Legomorph, which represents otherness and performs ceremonial rituals. I can relate to the people embodied, the goats, who enter what I also consider a third performative space within the goat costume. This is close to how I understand the hybrid, as it is both familiar and spiritual, and sometimes an unsettling experience. Further north in the traditions of Sami-Yoik, or the sound itself becomes a kind of transformation. When someone performs a yoik, they do not sing about a person or animal or a place. They become that person, they become that animal, and they become that place through sound. It is not representation, it is embodiment. Here, I would like to connect the Art Bank as its performance festival in October, which I participated with Hybrids. We are an international collective, collaborative, in collaboration with the Art Bank. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute, but what I'd like you to do is just listen to the wolf yoik. So I'll come back again. So I'm connecting this to the Art Bank as its performance festival in October, when I participated in, along with the Hybrids, as you can see here. We are an international collective in collaboration with Art Bank. We created a performance called El Puppet and the Mapmaker, which was set up in the local gallery EKJ. The Art Bank team brought 100 refugee students and 16-year-olds and above to engage with the project of writing the names and countries on textiles, which were sewn to the side of the canvas painted globe. It was later in the evening the staff and artists, as well as Hamar locals, ceremoniously walked through the dark, cold streets, becoming animalistic with prime sounds that resonated throughout Hamar. It was profound, but it was also in that moment that, without realising it, we were performing our own hybrid yoik. Where did we say shall we show this one?
Yeah.
Okay, this was part of IMAF, which is the International Multimedia Art Festival in Serbia that I co-host every year for the last 6 years, along with my co-host Nenad Bogdanovic. And you can see where I'm threading a lot of my own work with this newfound mythology. To me, it's a new discovery, the yoink. Okay, I just want you to get a feeling of some of the sound work I've been doing for many years and how it is drawn into my hybrid practice. This practice of becoming through voice also mirrors the aim of my costume work, not to imitate but to inhabit. This is something I reenacted in a collaborative performative of a hybrid nation in Serbia. This was actually in Novi Sad at the Sulev Gallery, where I had artists and locals engage with each other through sound, morphing their own uniqueness into the sound and being present in cultural rich tone. I now see this as another interpretation, reinterpretation of creating our own yoink. I also performed the hybrid in Madrid using sound as a way of embodying hybridity. Again, unintentionally, I performed my own hybrid yoink. Nordic mythology also contains many hybrid beings. Fenrir, the giant wolf, Sleipnir, Odin's eight-legged horse, and the Huldra. This is the Huldra, a woman with a cow's tail who lives between the forest and human worlds. Normally as well, it says that she's got a hollow back, so she's a beautiful woman who lives in the forest, but her back is hollow. And this amazing drawing was done in 1892, so the Norwegians have been reimagining themselves as animals since the 1800s and long before. So the wolf is deeply rooted in Norwegian culture, and the samjoik also embodies the wolf through sound. All of these figures raise questions about where human identity begins and ends. By linking my hybrid practice to these stories, I'm not claiming direct inheritance, but rather recognising that these questions about transformation, disguise and animal embodiment are ancient. In this context, what I bring is a contemporary neurodivergent reading of these myths, a reimagined costume and research. So we're going to look at audience borders and nomadic hybrids. Another essential part of the project is how the work is disseminated, how it reaches different audiences, and how those encounters contribute to the research. When the rabbit appears on the street in London, England, when the hybrid walks through Edinburgh in Scotland, or when the cruiser moves through a gallery in Madrid, in Spain, or the rabbit appeals from a forest in Islamabad in Pakistan, or walks through a village in the Japanese mountains in Japan, or walks through the streets of Manila in the Philippines, the work crosses cultural and geographic borders. Each hybrid carries a part of me, but also absorbs something from each place, language, weather, public responses and history. In this way, the hybrids become nomadic. They travel between nations, between identities, between interpretations. Each encounter becomes an experiment in social perception. How do people respond when they see something that is culturally out of place? Often with laughter or affection, sometimes with confusion or even suspicion. These reactions reveal the boundaries of social comfort, the rules of what is considered normal. By moving through different cultural spaces, the hybrids test these boundaries. They demonstrate how identity is perceived differently depending on its context. In London, the rabbit may be seen as eccentric. In Madrid, the cruiser becomes provocative. In Edinburgh, the clown carries heritage and grief. Across these crossings, the work reveals how belonging is deeply rooted in place and how displacement itself becomes an integral part of research. The hybrids serve as both explorers and reflections. They map the emotional borders between cultures, reflecting us how we judge what we cannot easily put into words. This is in the River Thames, and this is the hybrid cruiser. I had no idea this dog was there, by the way. It was only afterwards. And the photograph is by a friend of mine, Arnold de Serra, who's been documenting me for the last 2 years. From this journey, so we're going to look at what does this reveal. From this journey, several things have become clear. First, neurodivergent attention can be creative and precise. Hyperfocus, sensory sensitivity and non-linear way of thinking gives me insight to notice things that would be easy to miss, such as the sound of breath inside a mask, the way light alters the texture of fur, and the emotional shift that occurs when a stranger waves back. These are small but rich forms of knowledge. Second, making is thinking. The act of stitching, gluing, cutting and wearing are all ways of understanding. They are not preparation for knowledge, they are the knowledge itself. It's things we touch and smell, they're part of us. Thirdly, collaboration extends beyond humans. Elements such as materials, environments, unexpected events, and the audience play significant roles. When things take an unexpected turn, be it a costume tear, a mask slipping off, a technical malfunction, or text becoming unclear during copying, it alters the intended meaning and leads to fresh perspectives. In this light, failure isn't merely conclusion, but rather a pathway to discoveries. From this, I argue that artistic research can learn from neurodivergent practice because they value process over perfection, relation over certainty, and attention over outcome. So, inclusion and ways of knowing. What does this mean for research and education more widely? This means that we need to broaden the scope of what constitutes knowledge. Writing and theory are essential, but they're not the only ways to think. Knowledge can be gained through movement, touch and participation. It can live in the body as much as on the page. This came to light when the refugee students visited Gallery EKJ and opened flags from their countries. Without hesitation or thought, they began wrapping them around their shoulders, as this was their sense of identity, their knowing. They instinctively resonated with their country's symbol and brought it to life. This is their cultural knowledge that lives within them. For institutions, this means allowing researchers to present their findings through their own sensory and cognitive styles. At ArtBank has allowed me to show my research at the centre, which I really appreciate. For artists, it means recognising that our practice is already research. When we make, we think. When we perform, we analyse. When we feel, we understand. It also means creating inclusive spaces that support difference, where the way we learn, communicate and make art can vary. For many neurodivergent people, art making is not just creative, it's stabilising. It's stabilising. It is how we process life. When that is recognised as research, it allows others to see our contribution in a new light. So I'm going to have an open conclusion. I want to conclude with a reflection that stayed with me since completing and submitting my practice-based PhD thesis. Jack Derrida once wrote, "I am dreaming in the depths of an undiscoverable burrow to come. I am dreaming through the dream of the animal and dreaming of the scene I could create here." That image of the burrow feels close to how I experience a hibernation. The research has become its own burrow, a space of dreaming, safety and transformation. It has taught me that knowledge is not something we only write down. It is something we live. We embody knowledge through the body and what we feel, what we experience, and how it is constantly in motion. So my closing question is this. What can neurodivergent and hybrid practices teach us about how knowledge moves through the body, through costume, through jumpers, and through contact with others? Perhaps they show the understanding does not always arrive as a clear answer. Sometimes it arrives as a moment of connection, a shared glance, or a small act of curiosity between stranger and a hybrid, a human and an animal, or a collective voices performs through the streets of Hamar, as you can see here, unconsciously deeply connected historically with Norwegian folklore and bringing to life their own yoik. So this is a photograph of us walking through the streets of Hamar and with artists, locals, and the team from Kunstbanken. So I'd like to thank you for listening, and I look forward to your questions. How are we doing for time? What time is it now?
You are on time. 10 past 12.
Oh, good. We're on time. Please, any questions? I'm very happy to answer. We have many people that can translate as well, so. Anybody? Yeah?
I can try. You mentioned...
We've got translator.
no, it's not the language, it's structuring my thoughts.
Okay.
You mentioned the shamanic practices, right?
Okay.
As a parallel, or that this goes back in time, this goes back in history, to become the spirit of the animal through the yoik. So, how do you perceive this way that you do to become the animal? Do you see it as a direct or an indirect kind of tradition, or is it like something completely differentiated from it?
I've actually got a hearing problem. Did you hear what the question was? I understand it is to do with my connection between the shamanic practice and
Yes.
animality, and how I connect it in my own practice between animal and performance, or?
Yes, how you see those things.
And not particularly about the yoik.
No.
Okay, good. Because I've only discovered it, and I can't claim. I know we were having a conversation that there are, I think, southern Sami yoik that live in this area. So just to answer, well, I'm from Scotland, so we have a lot of Celtic mythologies that's also derived from Ireland, and so it's in my nature. But I think when I started performing as a rabbit, that it was just me sitting on the wall a decade of about 15 years ago, and how it's kind of progressed and transformed. I think the work itself, especially in the research, using the animal costume as a third performative space, in some ways that when we connect it with shamanism or some kind of transformation or morphing, it's through imagination and reimagining how we perceive ourselves and how we perceive the world. And I think what the costume does allows us as a gateway, because it becomes a container, we climb inside it. And that's why I refer it to as a third performative space. But it's also a portal. So because we're talking about rabbits, and I don't know if everybody knows that in a burrow is a hole that goes down in the ground, and so there's that climbing inside. And that in itself is another sort of portal, the underworld, the unseen, the invisibility. I've never claimed to be an animal, but I live as an animal, and I have become another kind of animal, and it's one that people, there's a myth in the UK where people on the 1st of every month recite rabbit, 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 or white rabbit, but normally to a kind of invisible, reimagined, godlike rabbit to bring good luck and wealth. Coming back to the yoga is something quite similar, that sort of myth, because it's to do with Christmas, to do with spirituality, it's to do with bringing presents and good luck. So I think between history and now, my reimagining of it is using it is in a way to have a conversation about how we understand knowledge, how we absorb knowledge. And as somebody that works visually, it's been a real tool, and it's allowed me to open the discussion in a non-neurotypical way that allows the fragmentation of how my mind works. So it goes over here, it goes over there, but the costume in a way helps to anchor that, because people can see it, they know what I'm talking about. So even to me, all this event and all the sound that came from the participants was quite extraordinary. And it still has an impact, not just on me, on people who encounter the sound, sitting in restaurants and cafes. Anyway, hopefully that's answered something.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Come on, lovely, you must have one.
It's just a lot to process, you know?
Yeah, tell me about it, 3 years worth. What I've tried to do is just take a section. This is microscopic.
Yeah.
But we can talk after as well, private, because I'm here now, so I'm here till Sunday, so I can relax. Any other questions from the floor? Yes?
This was very inspiring to listen to. I'm also thinking about old myths and Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology. So there are so many possibilities where you can go into where animals sort of represented something divine. Have you been thinking in those terms a little bit?
No. It's present. I mean, animality is very present. I mean, I deal with white rabbits, so Titian's painting, which was painted in the 1700s, has a painting of the Virgin Mary stroking a white rabbit.
Oh yeah. Mm.
And when I saw that, it blew my mind. How does that work? How does rabbits fit into Christianity? How does it fit into Easter? But I think because one of the problems I have with my dyslexia and ADHD is that I find it hard to recall history and text knowledge. But I think by embodying mythology within the body and using costumes as a way to embrace that, whether I'm quoting history or not, if someone sees it like you have, it connects. Mm. Even that I don't actually have to say that's very much like Greek mythology. You've got the pan god, half goat, half man, since we're talking about goats. And certainly when we're talking about transformation and human and animal morphing, where witches were often persecuted, women for what, practicing their healing practices, or midwives. But then all the rumours, all the kind of reimagined that they turned into hares. This transformation of becoming something else. But in today's society, if we bring it back here now into looking at difference, how do we accept difference? And using these, this way, animal costumes to open that discussion about acceptance, whether it's the skull of your skin, or you come from another culture or country, when the team here came to the EKG gallery, and we had, throughout the day, we had 100, I think, of refugee teenagers from all different cultures and countries. I think what that did, again, you know, they brought with them their own cultural story. So whether they say it or not, but when they held their flags over the shoulder, I know I'm making a big thing of that, but it was an instinctive act that we witnessed something that happened, but it didn't need explaining. And that's what I'm talking about mythology. It's inside us. It's just that this belonging, this sense of need. So again, with these kids who have crossed borders, have lost they can't go back to their countries. They're somewhere else, and thankfully Norway's been very supportive to refugees over the years. But I think that connection to history is there, whether I remember it or not. But the moment you see it, you connect to it, and I think that's important. It opens that invisible knowledge. It's there. Yeah, I've got 10 minutes left on this. Someone behind you.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I haven't read the whole thesis, so
No, no one has.
maybe this is something that is already in the thesis. But
No. Yeah, correct.
you have been talking about learning by experiencing and doing, and how this can help us accept ourselves, but also others. And I wonder if you are planning to make this kind of a tool that can be used in the educational system, or is that a part of your work to try to help teachers or others to help their students through work like this? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, no, I do. Basically, it's looking at alternative ways to access knowledge that allows people, and especially a system that functions in a neurotypical structure, allowing room to breathe for people with neurodivergence like autism, ADHD, dyslexia. It is in the research. It's in the form of, if you go to spikemcclarity.com, and you'll see the visual part. The exhibition, in some ways, that was the PhD exhibition I had a few months ago, was held in a college, and they were 16 to 18 years old. And so if they come in the building, they turn right, they go through barriers to the classroom. If they turn left, there was me and my hybrids, which were sat round a table, and they were drawn to. Now, over 400 students came to that, and some of the evidence of what happened that came from that way of working, it allowed the students to, one was locked out of the classroom, so they came and joined us for an hour and sat in a space, a micro space I created called the sacred space. I had God and the devil, and beneath them is White Rabbit, and then I had this altar area, which I think it's online. And what that did, it offered for a short time an alternative educational space, which I hadn't at the time planned. It just became that because there was an infinity and identity, and even sitting down, making and talking. And I think one of the feedback that I had from one of the teachers was that that one of the students who hadn't been verbal for a year came back to the classroom and spoke for the first time. So that can affect people in education, but I don't know, that's another journey and another way. I generally work with adults, so adults are my my profession, not teenagers or kids, but I think maybe that if that's where the work leads to, then if that opens up, that'll be a really good avenue to reflect on. Any others? Did you want to ask something, or no? Yeah.
There's no connection to the famous song by Jefferson Airplane, white rabbits.
Yeah, no, there isn't. But when you know, it's not. Yeah, you take one tablet or you take the other. But it's very deeply in some way. It's connected to Alice in Wonderland and the reimagined Mad Tea Party. And I think it was the Alice Through the Looking Glass was written late 1800s and was produced then. But yeah, I get sent so many things, you won't believe it. The amount of things people send me. Is this you? It's clearly not me. But because of my topic of being a rabbit, the people, wherever they are in the world, send me the most bizarre pictures. So I kind of like that, because I think I'm doing something right. So. Okay, it's quite cold as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Listen, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to the Art Bank for allowing me to have this session before my examination next week. And I'm sure I'll keep you in touch. And thank you for your support. And thank you to to my team and my technicians, and so it's helped to make this little happening a more positive experience. Thank you.
We can share this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Spike. It was a pleasure, as I expected. And I just wanted to wish you all the best and good luck with your exam on the 19th.
Yeah.
And the best of luck from the audience too, I suppose.
Okay.
Another applause.
Thank you.